It's discussions like these that truly push the envelope, making us rethink and reimagine the possibilities. And speaking of reimagining, let's gear up for something that's going to take that concept to the next level. Ever heard of the mantra learn, unlearn, relearn? Well, if you thought that was just another catchy phrase, think again. Our next panel on the topic learn, unlearn, and relearn from knowledge to adaptability is all about unpacking the real essence of this mantra in the context of staying agile and adaptable to an ever changing world. Let's dissect this topic together by welcoming to the stage our moderator, Nibiyu Timatuas, founder and CEO of Rehoboth, and this panelist. She'll correct there. Correct there. Thank you.
Hi guys. Okay, this is loud. How are you guys doing? That's it? Come on. I need more. How are you guys doing? There we go. So, yeah. So, um, I was talking to my mom yesterday, and I'm like, Mom, like I'm kind of like, you know, scared for this. And then she told me why, like you did this like like a multiple time before. And then I told her, I'm like, yeah, but we are Canadians, right? So then I told her, Canadians are nice. So I don't know how Americans are gonna react. So hopefully we get nice thing. But so this is my favorite part that my mom always says, sometimes you have to like stop showing off. And then I told her one day maybe when I'm 20, and I am very, very close to being 20, so pray for me. But I come from Canada. I am the founder of three different things. First is mentorship program for youth male, because as we all know that man's mental health is very neglected issue, right? And then two is community cares, which we help a lot of youth through care packages, right? And then third is Rehoboth, which is to spread kindness through clothing brand. So every work that I do is to spread, um, you know, kindness, love, giving back. As I always say, there is a power in kindness. Can I get a like amen for that? No, that's it. Yeah, but I don't want to go on and on. So here we have five amazing people. So I will let them, start. So
Hello, all. Thank you for staying at this late hour, and I'm sure we'll try to keep it very energetic and entertaining. I'm Bhanu Vishwanatha from Bay Area. I teach information security, project management, and I also work as a senior product manager. Along with me, sir.
Hi, I'm Salsto. I am, and I use she, her pronouns. I am a PYP music teacher. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means a primary years program in the International Baccalaureate. I teach at Meridian World School over in Texas, just in Round Rock. And I look to do all sorts with my students. And I came obviously not originally from Texas, I'm sure you can tell. But when people ask me where am I from, I say Houston, because that's where I first lived when I moved out to the States from the United Kingdom. And I moved from the biggest county, Yorkshire, to the biggest state, mainland state, Texas. And I've been here since 2011.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Just like Bernie said, this late hour. My name is Sheridan Apala. I am the founder of Sharesome Group, and in Sharesome we have many companies under us. But one of the things we like to do is the consulting sector, which specifically helps a lot of people, immigrants, to transition into tech roles and specific areas just to help them have better opportunities, job opportunities when they come into a new country. So hopefully I have some things to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bob Safran. I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I have the distinct honor of being the oldest one on the panel. And with me being the oldest one, there's some other good news. I have the most educational experience. I have more than 50 years in education. I started out as a public school teacher. I was a college textbook editor. And then I decided it was time to be an entrepreneur. And in 1982, I rented 4 classrooms, or 4 office rooms, actually on the second floor, and I started a career school. 35 years later, I had over 250 students at each school, and I had a couple unique things about my schools. Okay, we were accredited 2-year for-profit schools, and I did from day one. I come to school for 30 days. If you're not completely satisfied, you get a 100% refund. Never lost a student. And compared to the community colleges, which if you Google post-second community college United States, graduate about 15% of their students after 3 years in a 2-year program. I was graduating 90% of my students and placing my students in jobs. Well, while doing that, because of my textbook experience, I'm always concerned about grammar and proper writing. I developed an online English grammar program. It started from a paper and pencil unit to CD, and then it went to Silverlight plugin, and now it's HTML. My program is called EGUM, which stands for English Grammar Usage Mechanics Program. And in 35 to 40 hours, I guarantee a student can become totally proficient in understanding grammar and writing proper English.
I think I need that program. Hi, everyone. My name is Luca. Last name is Ceccarelli. I'm with AIsynergy.net, and we're dancing at the intersection between AI, education, and resilience, where we basically go into schools and teach AI not only literacy, but leadership, which is one of the more important aspects of what we're doing. I'm probably the newest comer to education here because I come from coaching, I come from filmmaking, and I come from a background of management consulting. And so I'm piloting a new program, working with students, and just in at the deep end. So honored to be here.
Thank you so much. So I want to start very uh, general first. So what does this topic to learn, unlearn, and then adapt mean to you personally? Work experience. Just what does this topic mean to you?
Learn, unlearn, and relearn. If we can practice that as a parent, as a teacher, and as a student, you will be much better off. Because what we learned as a student around 50 years ago, if I teach the same thing to my kids, it's not going to fly. The way they learn has changed. So we have to unlearn first to teach our kids. Then, as a teacher, when I go into the classroom and start teaching the way I was taught, there is a reaction. As some of the previous speakers have said, they are focused only on the grades, not the learning. But your job as a teacher is to make sure that the students are learning or the learner is learning. So you need to first start the unlearning and relearning with you to be a better teacher. In work experience, I have to go through a couple of times to really unlearn the way I was doing the job to be better at doing the same job or a similar job. Same thing when I started teaching, I have to really adapt to the changing needs of what the students are expecting from you to be a better learners.
For me, it's the bread and butter of my job. As an educator, it is my role to constantly learn, unlearn, to relearn so that I can be the best person in my classroom to facilitate the learning of my educators. And I have spent countless hours looking at the knowledge that I have, that I've learned, and the fundamental basics of my subject, music, and how do I keep that current and relevant. And to do that, I have to unlearn what I first learned to do as a teacher way back and think about how to engage my students now so that they stay with the fact that music is an important piece of our lives. It's something that we all carry. Whatever way we engage with music, it is an important part. And so if I'm not making it relevant to my students, I'm failing in my job as an educator. And so I have to constantly look at what is relevant. How do I teach that? I have to learn what I've learned before about how I teach my subject and keep on looking for innovative new ways to be able to relearn to teach my subject. And so that is what I've spent my last, 20 years doing. If I look back at when I started my career, how I was teaching and how I teach now, it's night and day, even to pre-pandemic. Even 2 years ago, what I was teaching is different to what I teach now. And so it's a lifelong process of constantly learning, unlearning, relearning, so that I can remain relevant in my classroom and engaging with my students.
That was beautiful, Sally. For me, I would say in the my context for learn, unlearn, and relearn really sits with a need, a gap that I saw. I've had the opportunity as a professional, an immigrant first, then a professional, to see the importance of giving people the opportunity to do what they know best and guiding them how to do it. And the reason I say this is because when I first got into the country that I now call home as a citizen, I had to first learn their ways. Then I had to unlearn what I already knew. And then I had to relearn how to become the best at what I do. And I have the opportunity every single day to meet with people by result of what I do, consulting and mentorship. When I meet with immigrants who just come into a country, and most of them, it's surprising that most of them back home are professionals. But when they come into a country, many of them are confused. Many of them do not know how to um, you know, make their way into that industry where they're coming from. I have the opportunity to teach them and to tell them these three processes. First of all, with all the skills they've gathered, they have to they've learned something, but now many times for their for the sake of their career adaptability, they have to unlearn some old things, some absolute knowledge that they've had in the past, and also relearn, get new skills, and become better positioned in the job opportunities that they want.
Anybody in here ever hear the name Bert Lance? No, neither did I. I Googled this morning and I found out who Bert Lance was. What I was thinking about was if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? And then I said to myself, where did that statement come from? So I Googled and it was Bert Lance. Bert Lance was an American businessman back in the 70s. He worked for the Jimmy Carter administration. So now everybody in this room knows Bert Lance. Now, I wish Bert Lance would have made this statement back in the 50s. You know, learn the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Foundations of education. If you can't read, what can you do? Can you imagine driving and not be able to read the signs or trying to look at labels or something? So that was number one, crucial. Number two, when you talk about math, basic arithmetic, when people can't, I go into a store and today so many young people use something costs $1.79 and they need a calculator if you give them $2. All right, that's a shame. And three, grammar. When I went to school, elementary schools were called grammar schools. People learned how to diagram a sentence. Back in the 60s, the United States, I remember the United States went from like number one in education, number two or three, and there was an uproar. Today, when you Google, we are finding that our schools are 35th in math, 60% of the students can't read or are deficient in their reading skills. And what's happening is it's getting worse. So, what I learned was not taught today. Now, let's take the 3 R's. When we talk about reading, most people learn phonetically. They learned how to read through phonics. They were able to learn spelling and everything. And there was the great movement to go to a whole language approach. And what happened is we went from phonics, we went to memorizing words. There's a great book that was written in about 1986 or something, Why Johnny Can't Read. And it talks specifically about how bad it was that students weren't learning phonics. Then, when in my schools, I had a Persian, a man from Iran, who could speak 5 languages, graduated with like an A+ average in college, and he can't teach his children modern math. I use the expression, if a chicken and a half laid an egg and a half in a day and a half, how long would it take a frog with a wooden leg to puncture a hole in a pickle? Grammar. If you go to the National Council of Teachers of English, largest teacher organization, and if you look at their 1984 resolution, which is still on their website, it says stop teaching grammar. It says grammar is detrimental to creative writing. Now, what's more important, creative writing or writing sentences correctly? Okay, so I'm angry. And all I'm going to say right now is we have to unlearn how they're teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we have to go back to teaching phonics, teaching grammar, and teaching basic arithmetic.
I feel like everything's pretty much upside down for these kids right now. The landscape that they're navigating is one of political, corporate, environmental upheaval, turmoil. And what I'm seeing in my classroom is immense apathy, and I can't blame them. If I feel like I need to be apathetic, I can't imagine the world that we're sending them off into. It was Einstein gets quoted so much, but one of my favorite quotes of him is the distinction between past, present, and future is a stubbornly persistent illusion. And and what we see right now is that there is no past that relates to this present or the future that we're sending these kids into. Um, it, Whenever we talk about the learning, the idea of a knowledge, it's a snapshot. It's a moment in time that we're taking a picture of, and that time just changed, and it changed again, and it changed again. So the unlearning and the relearning is intrinsic to knowledge. But adaptability is probably the key here, because if we are not being adaptable to our students and their needs, we're missing the mark. Quite frankly, Grammarly is what saved me in my grammar. These kids, they're AI supported natives. This is a generation that doesn't know a world in education without some kind of support or intervention. So on the one hand, it might be crippling. On the other hand, it might be very freeing to really free up their creativity, which is why what I keep coming back to is looking for this synergistic dynamic that exists with the technology and the tools that the kids have available to them today.
So I liked how you touched up on technology and things like that. So my like follow-up question is like, how can we leverage that to learn, unlearn, and adapt to this fast changing world? I think you can start from that.
By getting out of the way, they know what they're doing. We're the ones that are struggling. What happened? What was the moment where we became that person that said, "Well, when I was your age, the way we used to do this." When did I become that person? And realizing they're fine. They are natives in this landscape. We're the ones that are grappling in the dark. So let's get out of the way. One of the classes that I teach is that I'm running right now, programs that I'm running, is called philanthropic AI. So we're teaching literacy, we're teaching leadership. It has nothing to do with the tools. It has nothing to do with the technology. It has to do with engaging and reaching out to your local community and bringing some good into the world. It's about exploring your own creativity. That has nothing to do with the tools. The tools are here to benefit us. There's always going to be those kids that are wise. There's always going to be those adults that are use things for ulterior motives. And when we keep presuming the worst out of our students, that they're cheating, that they're trying to cut corners, that they're trying to get around, I just have to go back to that apathy place. Like, what would I be doing in this world? It's shocking out there what they're navigating. So let's embrace the technology and let's help them use it and become literate and unleash them.
Mm. Thank you. I think we can continue.
Technology is fabulous. Artificial intelligence is fabulous. Or I wouldn't be here talking to you about my software program. Okay? Yes, diagramming sentences had its pluses and minuses. But now, by taking that same learning that we need, you have to learn what a sentence is to be able to write a good sentence. And the only way you're going to learn what a good sentence is by learning the parts of speech. Now, it's not difficult for anybody in here if I said to you, how much is 2 plus 2? Or if I said to you, how much is 5 times 5? And you learned all that through the multiplication tables, you learned that through rote memory. Now, how many people in this room, and I'm giving you a prize if you can do this, give me a complex sentence with an adverb clause, a prepositional phrase, and an infinitive phrase functioning as a direct object. Now, of course, now the bottom line is this. The bottom line is no, you don't remember all that, but if you had learned sentence structure, you don't have to. If you had learned reading, you don't remember how you learned phonics, but it's not important. With grammar, it is very important right now for these students because that's critical thinking. That's problem solving. And the bottom line is, I can talk to you later, but I have one 8.5, 11 sheet of paper, two-sided, and one side is called the word, and the other side is called the group of words. And it's everything you ever needed to know in grammar. And that's what we have to get back to. We have to relearn. But we need, and I see, for me, I'm going to start using artificial intelligence because as I put sentences in my program, now they'll be more meaningful. I can say that I need 50 sentences, sports trivia, historical facts, Texas facts, whatever it might be. So now the student would not only be learning their grammar, learning sentence structure, but they're also learning something important. If it was in the medical field, it could be sentences with medical terminology. And they can push a button and they can see, they'll learn the terminology while they're learning grammar. So yes, we need both. We need technology, but we also need to go back to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Personally, I speak to the fact that AI is not in itself detrimental, but and technology in itself is not detrimental. It's just the intention behind the use of that technology or AI. My students are mostly adults, and I find that technology, AI in this aspect, has been very helpful in helping many of them upskill as well as not feel dumb regarding an area of learning. So I personally encourage most of them to go back to learn or use the training programs. Most of my training programs have incorporated AI in it. There's still more that can be done. But however, in terms of relearning, AI can be a very helpful tool to help during the process of relearning some things, because the processes have definitely changed. The world is changing, the trends are changing, the workplace, there's a lot to learn. And sometimes you can feel very overwhelmed by the fact that everybody expects you as an adult to know everything or do things right. And no one is really willing to give you that sense of that opportunity to make mistakes and correct your mistakes. Everyone seems to be judging adults. But with AI, the opportunity to relearn certain aspects of life that would help them in their careers has been made available. So then again, I would say it's not about the technology or AI, but it's the intention in using that technology.
For me, technology has become a huge part of music. And whilst I believe still that the traditions are an important aspect, if I was to only teach those traditions, I'd lose so many musicians, because you don't have to be able to read music to be a musician. And the programs that are now available for anybody to use, and some of them are free, open that creative door that for some students is what gives them their purpose. And part of my role is being able to give the students the toolbox to be able to access and create the music. I use a quote that a children's author wrote many, many years ago: where words fail, music speaks. And Hans Christian Andersen was the person that said that. And it's very true. And I talk with my students frequently about the language of music. What does that share with us? How does that phrase actually play out to us in the world? And if I can give them the means to be able to express themselves through music in whichever way that is, whether it's writing their own song, creating the beats that express how they feel, if technology is what helps them do that, to be their best self, to be a creator, it unlocks a door, it gives them purpose. And so whilst I was resistant of the technology, I now embrace it because it's the way forward. It gives them a chance to do something that otherwise they might not be able to do musically because they can't read music. Yes, it's a language, but it's something you have to work hard at to be able to read the music notes on the stave. And as somebody who is neurodivergent, who went through entire school not knowing the problems and the reasons behind my challenges, I now use that in my classroom as I role model. I tell my students, I'm dyslexic. These are my problems. I own when I make a mistake. They'll tell me, they'll, highlight it to me. But when I share with them, I'm dyslexic, they'll ask the questions and it gets them to inquire. But it also gives the students in my classroom the knowledge to embrace themselves. And I talk about it as being a superpower. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Because they see it as a roadblock, that, whether it's their ADHD or whatever else. But I use tools to help those students have a level playing field so that they don't feel that they are inadequate. I want them to be empowered to be able to use music in whatever way speaks to them, whether that's how they listen to music, whether they're creating it, playing it, or whatever other ways. And so technology is a huge part in that puzzle. And being able to give them the toolbox and knowing the different platforms that they can use to be creative can help them in all aspects of their life.
To summarize, each one of them has said technology is here to stay. Adapt to that. As a teacher, imagine when people start using, your students start using the technology and submit the assignments, which of course I tell my students, don't use the result that comes from your chat GPT or Gen AI tool as an output and submit it. Instead, take it as an input. Put your own brains, improve upon it, and submit the assignment. Look at the quality of the work that they are submitting. That is the power of technology. Adapt to that. Don't try to prevent the students from using the technology. You cannot do that. You cannot stop the use of technology in submitting the assignments or doing the coursework. Even when you are doing an unproctored exams, they can go on internet and search for the answers. So you can't prevent that. Instead, be creative, learn the technology, adopt the technology, challenge the students to use the technology in a better way so that they become better learners. That way, you are with them. Then you don't have to say that question of in my days. That question don't arise. So don't go there. Your days are gone. Adapt to that. Adapt to the technology. Adapt to the new ways of learning to become a better teacher, better tutor, better parent to your kids, to your students.
So I know that you just said that your days are gone, but I want to bring you back to your days, and to ask you a question to if like you can share like a personal story where you had to learn, unlearn, and then adapt. We can start from you, and then we can just go down.
I'll club this with a piece of advice also
Hmm.
because we are running short of time.
Yeah.
When my daughter came to me around 17 years ago with a math problem, I have a double math major in major. Boom, boom, boom. I did it in 2 minutes. She has no clue. What did I do? How did I arrive at the answer? She said, Daddy, this is not how we learn at school. There is supposed to be 10, 15 steps. Instead, you have done it in 2 steps. Then I thought, okay, where did I go wrong? That's what taught me that I need
Hmm.
to first unlearn the way I learned. I sat with my daughter on that day, went step by step. How do you go from this step to the next step to the next step, next step? Then, to my surprise, I was able to write 20 steps, which never in my dream I would have imagined that I will put 20 steps to solve that problem. So that is what the experience taught me is that I am in a different circle here, different country here. The teaching methods are different, so I need to change. As a piece of advice to all the parents and teachers in this room, please do not make learning as prescriptive. Identify the passion in the student, in the child, try to encourage them. That is where you become better teachers, you become better parents. Anything prescriptive, if the kid doesn't like it, they don't have passion for it, it will only go north. So you have to be there with them to understand what is their interest, what is their passion, and then see how you can help them. That way, you become part of their success, not a roadblock to their dreams.
I think for me, the learn, unlearn, relearn comes down to my role as the teacher in the classroom. And we were always kind of taught that you're the person at the front of the room, you're in charge, you have to do this. And over time, I've learned that that's not actually the best way to teach, that you're not going to engage the students by doing that. It's about being a facilitator, providing, and it's working backwards. When I do my planning, I have to think about what is the end piece, what's the goal, where are we going, what is it that I want them to learn, and work backwards from that. And then I have to think, well, how do I deliver that in the classroom to be able to make it relevant to them? So I've had to unlearn how I learned to be a teacher to become the person that now provides the toolbox and the skills that they need to then explore and experiment to engage them in the learning to get the outcome. And I'm not prescribing saying these are the exact things you have to do, but here's what your end product needs to kind of be, but not a prescriptive product. So that I allow the students to share their best selves, their skills in the way that suits them. Because we're not all cookie they're not all cookie cutters, right? Every child is different, and their means of expression, their means of being able to work is all different, kinesthetic, audio, all of the different ones. And so I've had to learn all of those different things so that I can provide a space in my classroom where they can thrive and engage and be continuous learners. When they leave me in fifth grade, at the end of fifth grade, I want them to know how they can engage with music. And so it's been a very big process for me to do that, because everybody thinks, when they walk in the classroom, they should see the teacher doing. And I'm like, no, that's not what should be happening. Actually, it should be that you're seeing a hive of activity from the students. And that's a big shift in the mind. And it's much more, I think, now what people see as teaching and the way that teaching should be going. In terms of advice, I think don't put boundaries on the students in terms of what's the cap of their learning. I go back to the bumblebee. The bumblebee ergonomically shouldn't be able to fly, but nobody told it that it couldn't fly, so it flew. And so in my classroom, I don't have a limit to what my expectations is of what they can achieve. And if we can have that with our children and allow them to thrive and flourish in the best way that they can, if they're trying their best, they're achieving their best, and that should be good enough. Don't make them feel inferior because they're not getting that grade. I don't tell the kids what their grades are because that's not the important piece. The process, the steps that they've gone through, the discovery, allow them to explore, experiment, discover, because you don't know what gifts they're going to give you from that. And the kids know best what they can achieve. It's what we do to extract that from them and give them that enthusiasm to want to soar to the stars.
I would say, for me, in this context, would be personal development. First, personal development from my side, and then my students, who I said again are adults. Um, in the context of learning, unlearning, and relearning, it was one thing. I came from a background where, um, in school, there was so much competition to be number one. We had intense competition to the point that it was very unhealthy. Everybody wanted to be number one. And I don't know how many of you know, but I think this is very similar to both Africa, Asia moms. You have to study. Like if your parent is African or Asian, at least most of my Asian friends tell me this. They would love you to study to the point where you have to just be number one. If you're number two, they'll ask, what happened? Don't you have the same head as the person that got first position? And sometimes you kind of feel like, but I really tried my best. But then it's like your best wasn't good enough if you were not number one. So coming from that, I understood that I had to let my students know that they were more than enough. If they ever had that kind of background, it was okay not to compete. I think in the process, many of them have come to realize that they needed to appreciate their starting point, whatever that was, and then we would work from there. And I've seen so much development in each and every one of them because the end goal was always met. There was not one process to meet the goal. Their creativity was encouraged because it wasn't just this was the only way to meet this particular goal. Many of them became creative and were all able to meet the set goal.
I'll go back to what I said before, and I'll say it in a different way. We need to go back to the future. All right? What we need to do is get back to the basics. If we had a foundation that was strong, that everybody can read, write, and do arithmetic, I guarantee you that more and more students would move up the ladder especially in communications. The better your writing and speaking skills are, the higher up the economic ladder you will rise. But it's not fair to our students to not have the advantage that I had back in the 50s and 60s. And we were, there's nothing wrong with creativity. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good things, and there's a lot of new ways of approaching things. But without a foundation, if you can't do arithmetic, you're definitely not going to do algebra. If you don't know what a sentence is, you're barely going to be able to write more than what most people text now. And half the times they text, "How are you?" and they use the letter R or something. And right now, there are, if you just Google something like, there was a report that came out a few years ago from companies, 50% of the companies said that college graduates are graduating without the necessary writing skills to do their job. Now, it shouldn't be a mystery. It's pretty simple. If they don't understand grammar, they're not going to improve their writing. If they don't understand basic math, or if their reading skills are low, they're not moving anywhere in the world. So let's remember two things: Back to the Future and grammar. Don't leave school without it.
Following up on some previous points, this obsession with grades is truly toxic at this point. My 16-year-old, from all of her friends, it's your only pathway to success. It's the only way you're going to get to college. It's the only way we're going to be able to afford it. I have a 26-year-old who is equally obsessed. I have a 23-year-old who is equally obsessed, and it just, the degree to which it interferes with their ability to enjoy the process of learning is what I find most startling in the system right now. Um, my story, I don't know how we're doing on time with the story, but all I can really say to that is I was thinking about the fact that I love to sail, and we have statistical information. The way weather reports work is we have statistical information that is gathered over decades. And I sent a picture. I'm on my boat. I sent a picture to my dad, and he's looking at the clouds behind me. I'm like, "Look, I'm sailing," and he's like, "You got a squall coming." I said, "No, no, the weather's pointing this way, and all this other." And I realized, and after I went out of range, and the squall did come, and I was hit by a big storm, and I realized, of course, he was right, but I was so reliant on all my technology that I thought, I'm good, I got this, and I was going to prove it to him, and I was wrong, because when he went and learned to sail, you read the clouds, you read the skies, you see how high the clouds are, you know which way it's coming. You don't make a rookie mistake like that because you have 17 gadgets and devices on your phone, on your sailboat. I had fallen into a kind of a proving mindset, trying to show my dad how cool I was on my sailboat. And that's something I take into almost every class that I do is, are we using this technology to prove or to improve? And there's just this constant proving, and then it doesn't matter the technology. It can be any technology. With, obviously, I'm entrenched in it because I deal with AI in education. And for me, that's become a critical separating guiding principle. How many of you are using these tools to prove that you can do something you don't actually know how to do? And how many of you are using them to improve and make it better and go higher and further? So that's my advice: prove or improve.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much, and thank you all. And we'll be seeing how we can take this and apply it to our life. So thank you guys so much.